physician to excuse an absence. A student who is absent due to a mental health need must meet with a school mental health specialist within an appropriate period of time as determined by the local board to discuss the student's mental health needs. There is one amendment.
The number again on the bill?
House Bill 461.
461.
There's one amendment. If you retained your packet from earlier, it was attached. And the sponsor is Delegate Washington. This amendment strikes the defined term, and it strikes everything from the bill except the provisions providing that this is a lawful absence for a mental health day, and that the county board may not require a note from the student's doctor.
Can you just repeat that, what the bill does now? I'm sorry. I heard everything, and then you said you strike it.
Right. So essentially all the bill does now is say that a student may take a mental health day, and that is considered a lawful absence, and that the county board may not require a note from the student's doctor.
No, you go ahead. You have your light on first.
Let's start with Senator Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question: who's going to make that determination when a student is mentally incapable of staying in school? Is that going to be done by the counselor, the teacher, the principal? How will that be done?
I think that it's beyond the scope of this. This is more like your student is at home, they're feeling a little stressed out, they're just having a bad day, and they say, "Ma, I just can't go to school today," and that this is a lawful absence. That instead of having to lie that you have a sore throat,
So is
or
that
that
mental
you do that,
stress? Or
it's a mental health day.
Oh,
That's what this does.
I don't think it's a good idea.
Senator Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the packet was a letter from Anne Arundel County Board of Education asking for a negative vote. They already have provisions in their student handbook, not necessarily according to them. Senator Patterson, I think the kid just doesn't want to go to school that day, so you can't hold them responsible. I'll be voting against the bill.
I think I had Senator Ellis followed by Senator Lamb followed by Senator Galion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have a question for the council. Is there any record that will be kept of students asking for this mental health day?
There's nothing in the bill that talks about that, but I believe the current practice in schools is that if your student is absent, they have to bring in a note from home that says that they were absent. I don't know if they disaggregate that data or talk about what it's about, but that's been the practice as a parent.
Mm-hmm. So I'm concerned about a record being kept. I'll use my example. When I, at a certain stage in my military career, I was given a job where I needed a very high level security clearance, and I mean the investigators went all the way back to my school, high school and beyond. I mean, talked to everybody about everything, and I'd hate for someone to take this, use this, and it's in their records saying that, hey, this person has certain kind of problems which might open up for, without people understanding, because there are a lot of prejudices still with people with mental health, people who seek mental health. That's why a lot of people hide their issues. And so I'm really concerned. If we would want to do this bill, I would think we should put in a amendment where the school cannot keep any records of this. They grant it and they tear it up or document it just a sick day. So. Yeah.
Lamb, you're next, followed by Senator Galion.
Sure. So thank you. And I wholly agree with the intent of this bill, but I think some of the amendments continue to give me some pause. I think the intent is to treat mental health illnesses the same as physical health illnesses. And, I think the amendments get, further along in that path, but my concern is that it says that the school system cannot require a physician to excuse an individual from taking a mental health day from school, which is actually setting a different bar than for physical illnesses, where normally you do bring in a doctor's note to kind of point out why you're absent as well. So, I think while I agree with the intent, I feel like it's actually going in a different direction by setting a different standard for mental health conditions, which I think, to what Senator Patterson was saying, I totally agree with doing that, of giving students some leeway to do that. But I'm concerned about the different standards here and the inability to be able to verify that without a doctor's note, for example.
Senator Galion.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Just wanted to speak in opposition to the bill. So I know when I was in school, especially when the weather get warmer, there was about any place I wanted to be other than there. And I look at this as I want to be in a tractor playing sports, whatever the case may be. And I look at this, I know what I would have said. Hey, Mom, I need a mental health day because I don't want to be, sunshine. So, but that's one issue. But then the other thing I also look at, now as a parent, I would encourage, my children, if they were, having some difficulties or whatever, let's really enjoy the weekend. Let's enjoy the Saturday and Sunday. Take those days, maybe take have some mental health time then, where you rest and relaxation away from school. So we still have the weekends. That's the other thing I want to point out.
I just had a question, and maybe I missed it. I apologize. There's some other negotiations going on. What about extended? In other words, if someone's out for 5 or 10 days, is there a requirement of health or a note then that they're seeking help or getting counseling? This seems pretty general.
I thought I read in the bill it's only excused for 1 day. Am I correct about how it's written?
It was stricken, yes.
And
The only thing left was that this was a lawful absence from school and that they don't need a physician's note. That's the only thing left in the bill with the sponsor's amendment.
But does the rest of the law, where it says if a student is absent and they're under 16 or 18, they need a parent's note to have it excused? I mean, does that still apply?
Yes, the rest of this does not, I think, supersede the other law in that the county board can still require that the student provide some sort of evidence that they were out. That's what the note does. It just says this student was lawfully absent or absent on this particular date, some documentation to help the county board.
I had Senator Hester, followed by Senator. Have you spoken on the bill?
No, go.
Senator Hester, Vice Chair, Senator Lamb.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry, it's been a long day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You just got promoted. I just wanted to flag for the committee that we do have a shortage of therapists and social workers and psychiatrists and psychologists in the state. It's easier to take your child to an urgent care, for something that's, medical than it is to get help on mental stuff. And so I can see requiring a parent's note, but there's no way if you're having a mental health issue, you can get care in time.
Thank you.
Vice Chair?
No, I'm good.
Sure. So I think to try to answer the chairman's question too, if a student has a physical health condition that they're out for a prolonged period of time, if it's a chronic disease, they would need a doctor's note to be able to come back, to allow them to come back in. In this instance, if they were out for a mental health illness for a prolonged period of time, this actually, again, sets a different standard. There's no requirement for a doctor's note for this student who may have been out for 3 weeks with some kind of mental illness to be able to come back, even though they would require that for a physical illness. So again, sets a different bar for that.
It's addressing the long-term illness. I think that the intent of this bill, according to the sponsor, is just the random. You have a sore throat, you put in a parent's note, you have a day off. This would be very similar to that. I don't think it's supposed to be the prolonged episode of mental illness and then you don't have to produce a note. It's not clear and it's not explicit, but that was my understanding of the intent of the bill.
So I understand the intent, but I'm just looking at the language in paragraph 3 on page 2, which seems pretty clear that it cannot require a physician to excuse an absence.
In the sponsor's amendment.
It's still in the is the reprint not correct?
No, it's not. I believe after this committee's hearing on this bill, the sponsor had listened to a lot of the questions that the members had asked, and in response to that, sent in amendments essentially striking most of the bill, except making a day off for a mental health issue a lawful absence, and then not requiring a physician's note. That's all that's left in the sponsor's bill. So it's not the third reader House bill if you add the sponsor's amendments. And unfortunately, these amendments were in the packet you had earlier. If you still have it, there is a reprint of that in your packet.
What number?
61. It would be on pages 3 and 4.
It's still here on page 4. The county board may not require a note from a physician to excuse an absence under this subsection.
Right, physician's note, yes. Again, not for a prolonged absence, but for a one-day short term, going to be out because I was supposed to be here on a Thursday.
But it doesn't cite a duration here anymore in this subsection. Because it used to say at least one day of absence in each quarter of each school year. That's been struck in this reprint. But it no longer gives a duration in this reprint. So it doesn't matter if it's one day or 100 days, I guess.
Well, students are only permitted under Regulation 5 lawful absences per year. So if this were to count as a lawful absent, it would have to fall within those 5 days.
But what happens if they're out for 10 days for a schizophrenic episode and they're not allowed to bring a doctor's note according to this back in?
I don't want this to go on forever. We'll take one or two more comments, and then we'll decide how we want to deal. Senator Ellis, followed by Senator Washington.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my late mom was a nurse. Her last job, she was in charge of a mental health clinic. So I'm thinking back that all nurses have some level of training in psychiatry. So why would we leave out the school nurse in this bill? It defines a mental health specialist, school counselor, PPW, psychometrist, whatever that is, I don't know what that is, a school psychologist or school social worker, and it just leaves out a school nurse. The school nurse, is there. Is there a reason why we would leave the school nurse out of this to basically...
My understanding is that some of the opposition or some of the testimony that stakeholders had was that most schools don't have anywhere near staff that was presented in this bill. And maybe the thought was that, again, if a student is absent for a day because they have a sore throat, they don't have to go to the nurse the next day to get it checked out. So my understanding is that they took that out because that would be insurmountable in terms of the lack of resources in schools.
So on page 2, section D, that's taken out?
Yes.
I'm looking at the reprint.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I thought it was still in there. Sorry.
Senator Washington.
I just want to speak in support of the bill, more about the concept and the message. I mean, we do know that with COVID, but just certain schools, there's a lot of stress that the suicide rates of young people is increasing, that if they are able to take just a mental health day, and I know that all of us are socialized to grin and bear it, and yeah, life was tough, and you just just step up and work it. That has created a lot of anxiety-ridden adults and dysfunctional family situations and heart disease and diabetes and all kinds of things. If young people could learn that if you need a mental health break, that it's okay, we reduce the stigma for that. If you need to take a day, take a breath, do that. I think that that's something we should allow our young people to do. So I'm supporting the bill.
I'm just going to make a very brief one. Conceptually, I think it's very important to recognize and understand mental health. But just putting that there without any supports, or the original bill, which had problems, said they had to ensure when they came back that they checked in with someone who was in a counseling role to ensure that they're getting the help they need or there's some process in place. I'm also concerned about, this doesn't say 1 day or 5 days or 10 days. I don't know if it excuses it if it's 5 or 10 days. And if I'm very torn. I don't, I want to vote for conceptually, but as a piece of legislation, I have serious concerns. So is there a motion? Okay. Senator Simon Ayer, I think I'm going to hold the bill after your comment.
That's fine.
I don't know if there's consensus. I don't get a sense there's consensus, so we're just going to hold. Before us? Okay. I made it on a separate issue. I made a counteroffer, a compromise proposal to my counterpart, and he rejected it. So climate change solutions bill is not going to happen. I mean, a couple parts are incorporated in other bills. The tree bill apparently passed the House. So 5 million trees over the next 10 years will be planted, 10% in urban areas. Tree Solution Now Act.
How about the bus?
I don't know where the bus bill is at the moment. It had passed second reader and then it stalled, so I'm not sure where that is. So, huh? I'm sorry? Okay. Well, I just want to thank everyone for their help and support on that. Senator Patterson?
How do we go about addressing maybe a concern that you might have? It was a bill that was in, certainly not going any place, but I'm thinking in terms of an avenue that where a letter could be submitted to the appropriate department or responsible party to at least take a look at the situation. Is that you got to bring the situation up?
Well, let's you and I talk.
Okay.
Not tonight.
Yeah. Okay.
Our brains are already fried.
Okay.
And if I can help,
Okay.
I will try to do that.
Okay.
We've already there are 1 or 2 we've already committed to for different members here. So.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Sometimes I can get the job done. Senator Washington.
I'm so disappointed to hear that the House was not willing to accept the compromise. I've gotten nothing but emails from my constituents, 50 emails already we've gotten about how vital this act was to the future of the planet and to our young people. We had some consensus within this group, those important, so again, I'm very disappointed that we weren't able to come to it, but appreciate your dedication and this committee's dedication to our future, and we should stick by our values, and I appreciate that.
We go back into 9:30. The Senate President said sharp. Don't believe it. That's true. You can get some food if you need a little food. And like I said, people are welcome to come back after midnight.
I just want to thank you and the vice chair, and I think we've got a really good committee here
We disagree on policies, but I think we've worked very well. As I say, we have the most legislation in here, and I think you've been relatively fair, except for my one bill. No, I'm just kidding you. I appreciate it, and I think we've got some good friendship in here, and wish you all the best if I don't get to see you on the floor, so thank you.